There are seasons when you can sit in complete silence, close your eyes, place your hand over your heart, and feel nothing you can name. And that absence can frighten you more than any outer chaos, because somewhere inside you, you remember there was a time when the connection felt effortless. You remember when beauty found you without effort, when a morning sky could move something tender in your chest, when a song, a prayer, a breath, a quiet walk could open a doorway inside you so naturally that you didn't even think to question it. And then life happened. Responsibilities happened. Loss happened. Survival happened. The world became loud, and your inner world became practical, efficient, disciplined, guarded. You kept going. You did what you had to do. You learned how to function in days that asked too much of you. And slowly, almost invisibly, the feeling faded. This is important to hear. The fading of that feeling did not mean the truth itself disappeared. The warmth may have gone quiet. The tenderness may have withdrawn behind layers of fatigue. The ease may have become harder to access. And yet the connection itself did not break. It could not. Something in you already knows this, even if your mind still resists it. Because there is a difference between being disconnected and feeling disconnected, and most people were never taught that difference. Most people assume that if they cannot feel peace, peace is gone. If they cannot sense intuition, intuition has left. If they cannot access love, love has abandoned them. But your life does not work that way. The sacred does not disappear every time your nervous system becomes overwhelmed. Your soul does not vacate the room because you have been tired for too long. The deeper current of who you are remains, even when the surface waters are choppy, even when the day has no poetry in it, even when you feel more like a machine than a living prayer. You have perhaps been carrying a private grief around this. Not only the grief of feeling numb, but the grief of remembering that you were not always this way. Maybe you have asked yourself questions in the dark that you have never spoken aloud. What happened to me? Why can't I feel what I used to feel? Why do other people seem so connected while I feel flat and far away? Why do I know all the right words and still not feel the truth of them in my body? And underneath those questions, perhaps there has been a quieter one. Have I lost something essential? Have I become someone who cannot return? No, dear heart, no. You are not someone who lost the doorway. You are someone who has been standing in a storm for so long that you forgot what stillness feels like in your own skin. And when stillness becomes unfamiliar, connection can feel distant, because so much of what we call connection is not dramatic at all. It is subtle. It is intimate. It arrives softly. It often sounds less like thunder and more like the smallest exhale of relief. It feels less like a cosmic event and more like remembering your own name after years of answering to what everyone else needed from you. Your heart already knows this, Somewhere deep inside, you have always known that what is real does not vanish because it is not currently loud. There are people who have mistaken intensity for truth. They think connection must always feel electric, ecstatic, obvious, undeniable. They chase signs, synchronicities, sensations, visions, highs. And there is nothing wrong with beautiful moments. There is nothing wrong with awe. There is nothing wrong with being touched by the mystery in ways that make your whole body come alive. But the deepest connection is often quieter than that. It is the kind that stays even when the lights go dim. It is the kind that sits beside you while you wash the dishes with a tired body. It is the kind that holds you while you answer emails, while you grieve in traffic, while you make another ordinary meal, while you fold the same laundry, while you lie awake at night trying to understand your own life. It does not only appear in special moments, it is woven into the fabric of your being. And when you forget the feeling of it, that does not mean it is gone. It means something in you needs gentleness, not judgment. I want to say something carefully because I know how tender this territory is. Sometimes the reason you cannot feel connected has very little to do with spirituality and everything to do with protection. Sometimes your body, with extraordinary intelligence, lowers the volume on feeling because too much feeling would have been unbearable. Sometimes numbness is not failure. It is mercy. Sometimes distance is not punishment. It is adaptation. Sometimes what you call being blocked is simply the evidence that you have lived through seasons where staying open felt unsafe. And if that is true for you, then please let this sink in. You were never weak for becoming guarded. You were wise in the way living beings are wise. You adjusted. You survived. You found a way through. Have you noticed how often people talk about healing as though it is all opening, all expansion, all radiance? And yet there are chapters in life when closing is what saves us, when tightening is what gets us through the night, when going a little numb is the only way the heart can carry what it cannot yet process. If you've been through heartbreak, chronic stress, betrayal, grief, caregiving, burnout, emotional neglect, prolonged uncertainty, or simply years of carrying everyone else while abandoning your own needs, then your system may have learned that full feeling is dangerous or at least inconvenient. So it became efficient. It became productive. It became brave in the language the world rewards. And in that bravery, perhaps you drifted away from the sensation of being deeply met from within. This has happened to so many people who are secretly very sensitive. In fact, if you have been feeling numb lately, it may be because your sensitivity is so profound that your system has had to soften the input just to keep moving through your days. Your sensitivity is a gift, and like all gifts, it can become exhausting when it is unsupported. When no one teaches you how to care for a sensitive heart, that heart often learns to become practical instead. It learns to perform strength. It learns to anticipate disappointment. It learns to stay busy. It learns to smile while feeling absent. It learns how to continue. But beneath all of that training, the gift remains. The sensitivity never truly dies. It waits. It listens. It stays near. Let that settle for a moment. There is a way that forgetting can happen so gradually you do not even notice it at first. Not one dramatic rupture, not one definitive moment, but 1,000 small self-abandonments that seemed necessary at the time. You stop lingering over your tea in the morning because there is too much to do. You ignore the ache in your chest because someone needs you to be reasonable. You silence your intuition because it complicates things. You move past your own sadness because there is no room for it in the schedule. You keep the peace. You meet the deadline. You show up. You cope. And over time, the body learns that presence is optional while productivity is mandatory. The soul is still there, of course. The wisdom is still there. But the feeling of connection becomes harder to access because the habits of your life have been built around overriding what is subtle. This is not an accusation. This is not a scolding. This is not another invitation to improve yourself through effort. It is an act of compassion to simply name what has been happening. Because so much healing begins when we stop making a moral problem out of something that is actually an understandable response. If your inner life feels quiet right now, perhaps it is not because you failed to stay spiritual enough. Perhaps it is because you have been very busy being strong in places where softness was needed but not available. Perhaps you have been carrying more than your visible life reveals. Perhaps your smile has been doing work your heart is tired of doing. Perhaps the disconnection you feel is not the absence of love, but the exhaustion of holding so much without being held. And yes, I said held. Because one of the deepest human longings is not merely to understand life, but to feel held by it. To feel that you belong in existence without having to constantly justify your presence through usefulness, performance, sacrifice, or achievement. To feel that there is a larger kindness moving through things, even when your mind cannot explain the shape of your days. To feel that you are not alone inside yourself. So when that feeling goes dim, the ache can be profound. Not theatrical, not visible, just profound. It is the ache of losing the taste of home while still living in the house. It is the ache of carrying the memory of warmth but not being able to touch it. It is the ache of forgetting the feeling while never quite forgetting that it once lived in you. What if I told you that this forgetting is far more common than people admit? What if I told you that many of the most spiritually sincere, emotionally aware, loving people go through long stretches where the inner current feels inaccessible? Would that change the way you speak to yourself? Would that soften the shame? Would that make room for the possibility that nothing is wrong with your soul? That perhaps the season you are in asks not for more discipline, more forcing, more searching, but for a different kind of listening. Because here is what I've come to understand. Connection cannot be bullied back into the body. It cannot be argued into existence by a frightened mind. It cannot be forced through spiritual performance. The heart does not open because it has been criticized enough. The nervous system does not soften because you are disappointed in it. The inner world does not return because you scold yourself for taking too long. Real remembering begins when some part of you finally feels safe enough to stop bracing. This is why so many practices that are supposed to help can sometimes make a person feel even more alienated. Not because the practices are wrong, but because they are approached from strain, from desperation, from the message underneath the message which says, I need to fix myself so I can be worthy of peace again. And the body hears that. The heart hears that. The deeper self hears that. So even while you are meditating, journaling, praying, breathing, affirming, there may be an undercurrent of violence in the approach, not outward violence. Inner violence. The violence of treating your own tenderness like a problem to solve. You deserve a gentler way than that. Maybe the return begins here, not in trying harder to feel connected, but in telling the truth about how long you have been tired. Not in chasing transcendence, but in admitting that you miss yourself. Not in climbing towards some higher state, but in kneeling beside the part of you that has been surviving and saying, I understand why you went quiet. I understand why you withdrew. I understand why the feeling got buried, and I am not here to force you open. I am here to stay. Can you feel the difference in those words? I am here to stay. There is medicine in that. The body recognizes commitment more than ambition. The soul responds to sincerity more than performance. And perhaps this is the place where remembrance begins, not through spectacle, but through consistency, through the repeated experience of being with yourself in a way that is not abandoning, not demanding, not harsh. Through the small, almost invisible moments when you stop overriding your own experience and begin honoring it, even when it is inconvenient. Through the ordinary miracle of becoming a safe place for your own life to land. The world rarely teaches this. It teaches optimization. It teaches appearance. It teaches speed. It teaches external validation. It teaches you how to become legible to other people, useful to other people, profitable to systems that do not actually know your name. But the feeling you are longing for cannot be restored through greater legibility. It comes alive in the places where you become real again, where you stop performing okayness and begin inhabiting what is true, where you let your shoulders drop a little, where you admit that your heart has been lonely, where you stop asking how to become more impressive and start asking what would help you feel more honest, more human, more home. You may have been taught that connection is something out there, something you must earn access to, something reserved for the pure, the disciplined, the enlightened, the spiritually gifted. But what if connection is less like an achievement and more like gravity? Less like a prize and more like breath? Less like a summit you must reach and more like the ground beneath your feet, whether you remember it or not? You are already in relationship with life. You are already inside the field of belonging. Even your longing proves it. Even your ache proves it. Because the reason you miss the feeling so deeply is that some part of you remembers it with complete accuracy. Your longing is not evidence of distance. It is evidence of memory. That is important. Let it settle. Longing is often misunderstood. People treat it like lack, like deficiency, like a sign that something important is unavailable. But longing can also be the soul's way of orienting you back toward what matters. A compass ache, a sacred homesickness. Not to torture you, but to keep you moving inward rather than settling for substitutes. If you have been feeling restless, discontent, unable to be fully satisfied by what used to distract you, there may be a simple reason. Something deeper in you is asking to be remembered. Not performed, not explained, remembered. And remembering in this sense is not primarily mental. It is not about collecting better ideas. It is not about mastering spiritual concepts. It is not about saying the right words in the right order. It is felt. It is cellular. It is the moment your body stops defending itself quite so hard and allows one honest breath to reach somewhere it hasn't reached in a while. It is the moment tears arrive without a story and you don't rush to explain them. It is the moment beauty touches you unexpectedly and you realize you are still reachable. It is the moment you notice that the sky has color again, that music enters you again, that silence does not feel like punishment, that your own presence is no longer unbearable. Have you noticed how the return often begins so quietly you might miss it if you were waiting for something dramatic? A little more ease in your chest while washing your hands. A softer exhale at the sound of rain. An urge to sit by the window instead of reaching for noise. A flicker of tenderness when you look at your own tired face. A sense that maybe, just maybe, the day is not entirely against you. This is how the sacred often re-enters awareness, not as a performance, as a permission, not as a demand, as a softening. And if you have forgotten the feeling for a long time, you may not trust these small moments at first. That is understandable. When deprivation has lasted a while, the nervous system can become suspicious of goodness. It can doubt peace. It can flinch at ease. It can question any sweetness that arrives because sweetness once felt unreliable or short-lived or too dangerous to depend on. So if this is where you are, then please hear me with immense compassion. You do not have to immediately trust the return. You only have to be willing to notice it. Trust can grow later. Recognition comes first. Somewhere deep inside, you've always known that true connection does not humiliate you. It does not rush you. It does not demand that you skip over your humanity to be worthy of grace. It meets you where you are. It arrives in your actual life. It does not insist that you become someone else before you are allowed to feel close again. That is not love. That is not spirit. That is not healing. Real love comes nearer when you tell the truth. Real spirit comes nearer when you stop pretending. Real healing begins when you understand that your wounds are not interruptions to your path. They are part of the landscape where your path becomes honest. So many people are exhausted because they are trying to return to themselves through self-rejection. They are trying to become peaceful by staying at war with their own tenderness. They are trying to access divine love while speaking to themselves in ways that wound. They are trying to open by forcing. And what they often need most is the radical permission to stop treating their inner life like a productivity problem, to stop measuring their worth by how high vibration they can seem, to stop performing wholeness, to stop confusing dissociation with transcendence, to stop using spiritual language to abandon human need. Because your human needs do not make you less spiritual. They are one of the sacred places where Spirit asks to meet you. You need rest sometimes. You need comfort sometimes. You need to grieve. You need to feel confused. You need time. You need support. You need ordinary kindness. You need softness. You need moments of aimlessness. You need room to not know. And none of that makes you less connected. In many cases, it is precisely through honoring those needs that the feeling begins to return. Because the body stops perceiving life as a place where it must constantly perform to stay included. And when the body no longer feels exiled by your standards, it becomes possible for the heart to come closer again. I want to speak for a moment to the part of you that has been quietly trying so hard. The part that reads, listens, learns, reflects, tries to grow, tries to heal, tries to be conscious, tries to be kind, tries to do it right. I see that effort. I honor that effort. And I also want to whisper something to that part. You are allowed to stop proving your sincerity. You do not have to audition for belonging. You do not have to demonstrate spiritual adequacy to deserve the feeling of connection. You are not late to your own life. You are not behind in your awakening. You are not disqualified because this season has been harder than you expected. Sometimes the awakening is not bright. Sometimes it is quiet and aching. Sometimes it arrives as the realization that you have been treating yourself like a project because no one taught you how to be held with tenderness. Sometimes it arrives as the grief of seeing how long you have been surviving without softness. Sometimes it arrives as a trembling truth. I miss the feeling of being alive inside myself. And when that truth comes, painful as it may be, it is already a doorway. Because honesty is one of the most direct paths back. You might notice something as you hear these words. Perhaps not fireworks, perhaps not certainty, but maybe a loosening. Maybe a little less pressure in your chest. Maybe the faint sense that you have been understood in a place that has not felt understood for a long time. That matters. It matters because the body often returns to itself through being accurately seen, through recognition, through the relief of not having to explain the invisible labor of being human, through the moment someone names what you've been carrying and you realize, I am not strange. I am not failing. I am living through something real. And once that recognition arrives, even faintly, another truth can begin to emerge. The feeling you forgot has not been standing far away judging you for taking too long. It has been waiting with extraordinary patience underneath everything, underneath the schedules, underneath the disappointments, underneath the roles you had to play, underneath the version of strength that got you through, underneath the loneliness you could not quite name, underneath the overthinking, underneath the fatigue, underneath the self-protection. It has been there like a spring deep below dry ground, not gone, only hidden by conditions that made surface access difficult. Like a seed breaking open in dark soil, some forms of remembering happen out of sight first. Nothing visible on the surface, nothing to show anyone. Not hing that looks impressive, and yet underneath, life is reorganizing. Roots are taking hold. Tenderness is becoming possible. A different kind of relationship with yourself is forming. One that is less interested in appearances and more interested in truth. One that understands that rushing can interrupt what only safety can reveal. One that is willing to begin again, not from the top of the mountain, but from the place where your actual feet are touching the earth. This is where the reframe becomes so important. What if the problem is not that you are disconnected? What if the problem is that you have been interpreting temporary numbness as permanent separation? What if the silence is not abandonment, but a waiting space? What if your inability to feel deeply right now is not proof of spiritual failure, but evidence that your system has been protecting something precious? What if the invitation is not to climb higher, but to come closer? Closer to your own breath, closer to your own pace, closer to your own hurt, closer to what has been unfelt and therefore unintegrated. What if the return is not vertical at all, not upward, inward? That changes everything, doesn't it? Because now you do not have to strain towards some abstract heaven of consciousness. Now you can sit here in your ordinary body, in your ordinary room, with your ordinary weariness, and realize that the way back is available exactly here. Not because everything is fixed, not because you suddenly know what to do, but because connection was never somewhere else. It was waiting beneath the noise, beneath the self-judgment, beneath the fear that you had gone too far away. And the moment you stop making war with your own experience, you begin to make room for it again. There is something happening in many people's lives right now that is rarely spoken about with enough tenderness. They are outwardly functioning and inwardly estranged. They are capable, reliable, articulate, responsible, even loving, and yet privately they feel distant from their own center. They know how to get through the day, but not how to rest inside it. They know how to care for others, but not how to feel accompanied within themselves. They know how to produce, but not how to receive. And because the world rewards function, this estrangement can go unnoticed for years. But the soul notices, the body notices, the dreams notice, the exhaustion notices. If you've been craving solitude intensely lately, it may be because your inner life is asking for enough quiet to become audible again. If certain relationships, environments, or obligations have begun to feel unbearable, it may be because misalignment becomes harder to tolerate once the deeper self starts calling you home. If what used to satisfy you now feels strangely empty, it may be because you are no longer willing to live on substitutes for real contact with your own being. These are not punishments. These are signals. Not always comfortable, but deeply meaningful. And yet signals can be frightening when you've forgotten how to read them. That is high compassion matters so much here. Not all inner shifts feel beautiful in the beginning. Some feel like irritation. Some feel like grief. Some feel like boredom with a life that once seemed fine. Some feel like sensitivity you cannot manage. Some feel like tears with no obvious cause. Some feel like the sudden inability to tolerate noise, hurry, superficiality, or emotional dishonesty. And if you were trained to override your instincts, you may interpret these changes as weakness. But here's what I've come to understand. Very often, they are signs of life returning. The gift of your sensitivity, the very thing you thought made you weak, is precisely how you begin to detect what is true again. Not because sensitivity makes life easier. Often it does the opposite. It reveals what others can ignore. It makes pretense harder to maintain. It exposes what is misaligned. It notices atmosphere, tone, subtext, tension, fatigue, beauty, harm, longing. It asks a lot of you. But it is also one of the ways your connection speaks. It is not your enemy. It is your instrument. And if it has been muted, then part of this season may simply be about learning how to treat that instrument with reverence instead of frustration. Have you ever noticed how a musical instrument goes dull when it is left untended, not ruined, not broken, only out of tune? Dust gathers, strings loosen, wood dries, and someone unfamiliar might assume it has lost its voice. But place it in caring hands, bring patience, listen closely, adjust gently, and the music returns. Not because it was created in that moment, but because it was always inside the instrument, waiting for the conditions to support expression. You are not different. Your voice has not been erased. Your connection has not been revoked. Your inner music may simply have needed a season of protection, and now perhaps it is ready for care. This care is not flashy. It is not a 7-step transformation. It is not a performance for anyone else's approval. It is often painfully simple. Drink the water slowly. Sit down before you are exhausted. Turn off what numbs you for a few minutes longer than usual. Let the tears come if they come. Stop calling yourself lazy when you are depleted. Stop calling yourself weak when you are overwhelmed. Stop calling yourself broken when you are adapting. Step outside for a breath. That is not multitasking. Put your hand on your chest and say something true, even if the truth is only this. I have been far from myself, and I want to come closer. That is a prayer. That is a beginning. And prayer, in its deepest form, is not always religious language. Sometimes it is the simplest, honest motion toward reality, the willingness to stop lying to yourself, the willingness to say, I miss what is real, I miss what is quiet, I miss who I am when I am not performing, I miss the feeling of being met from within. Such honesty is sacred because it opens space. It makes the inner room livable again. It lets life move where denial had become too tight. Remember what I mentioned about the difference between feeling disconnected and being disconnected. Here is the piece that changes everything. The feeling is shaped by conditions, but the truth is not. The feeling can fade when you are exhausted. It can dim when you are grieving. It can go quiet when your body is overwhelmed, when your mind is overworked, when your days are overfilled, when your heart is defending itself. But the truth of your belonging remains untouched by those conditions. You do not cease to belong to life because you cannot currently sense it. You do not fall out of the field of love because your emotional range is constricted. You do not stop being held by the deeper intelligence of existence because you are numb. The truth remains. Your work is not to invent it. Your work is to create conditions in which you can feel it again. And conditions matter more than most people realize. People often try to think their way back to connection when what they really need is enough rest to notice anything subtle at all. They try to reason with their sadness, optimize their rituals, and discipline their minds, when what is needed may be slower evenings, quieter mornings, less overstimulation, more truth in relationships, more permission to not perform, more contact with beauty, more pauses between tasks, more safety in the body. The feeling of connection does not bloom easily in a life arranged entirely around pressure. That does not mean you have to escape your life. It means you may be invited to inhabit it differently, to stop treating every day like a test of your adequacy, to stop scheduling yourself to the point of disappearance, to stop consuming so much noise that your own interior voice becomes impossible to hear, to stop using constant input as a shield against the discomfort of meeting yourself. Because sometimes the reason the feeling is missing is not mystical at all. Sometimes you are simply drowned out. The modern world is full of ways to leave yourself without physically going anywhere. Endless scrolling, endless reacting, endless comparison, endless urgency, endless accessibility, endless small violations of your pace, endlessly living in other people's energy and expectations. And then at the end of the day, you ask why you cannot hear the softer currents of intuition, peace, gratitude, or joy. Beloved, anything delicate struggles in constant turbulence. A candle flame is not weak because it flickers in high wind. It is simply asking for shelter. What if you are asking the candle to prove itself instead of offering it a little shelter? There is no shame in needing shelter. There is wisdom in recognizing it. There is maturity in understanding that the feeling of connection is not only a spiritual issue, but an embodied one. The body is not separate from your awakening. The body is not a lower instrument you must transcend. The body is one of the places where truth becomes tangible. If the body is frightened, overstretched, underrested, or chronically bracing, then the subtle warmth of connection may be harder to perceive. Not because it is absent, but because the system is oriented toward protection rather than reception. So ask yourself gently, Hannah, what has my body been trying to manage? Not as a problem, as a truth. What have I been asking of myself? What have I normalized that is quietly costing me access to my own aliveness? Where have I confused endurance with health? Where have I mistaken numbness for maturity? Where have I accepted chronic self-abandonment as the price of adulthood? These are not easy questions, but they are honest ones. And honesty is one of the most faithful bridges back. I once knew someone who told me she had not felt truly connected to herself in years. She could function beautifully. She was admired, dependable, generous, competent. Her life looked stable from the outside, but inside she felt as though she had been living behind glass. She kept trying deeper meditation, longer journaling, stronger affirmations, more spiritual discipline. Nothing seemed to restore the feeling she remembered. One evening, after a long season of trying to improve herself back into peace, she did something very small. She sat at the edge of her bed, put both feet on the floor, and instead of asking how to fix it, she asked a different question. What has it cost me to keep going like this? And the tears came. Not because she found a method, because she finally told the truth. That truth changed everything. Not all at once, but from that moment forward, she stopped approaching herself like an assignment and started approaching herself like someone worthy of care. That is when the return began. You may be standing at a moment very much like that. A threshold that does not look dramatic from the outside. No fireworks, no grand declaration. Only a quiet willingness to stop making your own heart earn its welcome. Only a gentle turning toward what hurts. Only a new respect for the ways you adapted. Only the decision to stop measuring your soul by sensation and start honoring the deeper continuity that has held you through every version of your life. Because you have been held, even in the seasons when you could not feel it. There were moments when you thought you were carrying everything alone, and yet something kept breathing you. Something kept moving you through. Something kept making small choices toward life possible. Something kept a tiny ember alive even when the world inside you felt cold. That something matters. You may call it spirit, soul, grace, inner wisdom, life force, love, presence, God, or simply the deeper self. The name matters less than the relationship, and that relationship was never severed. Hidden, perhaps, muted, perhaps, hard to feel, perhaps, but never gone. This is why you do not need to panic when the feeling disappears. You can grieve it. You can miss it. You can honor the ache. But you do not need to panic. Because panic often makes the system grip tighter, and gripping rarely restores what openness can reveal. Instead, you can practice another response, a softer one. When you notice the distance, rather than saying, "Something is wrong," perhaps you can say, "Something in me is asking for gentleness." Rather than saying, "I've lost it," perhaps you can say, "I'm in a season where the sign, Al is faint, and I will not abandon myself because of that." Rather than saying, "I should be better by now," perhaps you can say, "I am learning what helps me feel safe enough to return." That phrase matters, safe enough to return. Because return is not only desire, it is capacity. Many people long deeply for connection while lacking the internal conditions to receive it consistently, not because they are unworthy, because they are tired, overloaded, wounded, defended, rushed, unsupported, or trained out of receptivity. So this path becomes less about proving your devotion and more about building capacity for presence, capacity to stay with one breath, capacity to notice beauty without immediately reaching for your phone, capacity to feel a wave of sadness without making it a catastrophe, capacity to tell the truth to yourself, capacity to rest before collapse, capacity to let your body matter. This is sacred work. It may look simple. It may look unimpressive. It may not even look spiritual to the outside world. But the outside world often does not recognize holiness when it appears as honesty, pacing, boundaries, sleep, tears, nourishment, quiet, or tenderness. The outside world likes spectacle. Your soul likes sincerity, and sincerity has a sound. It sounds like you saying, "I cannot do this pace anymore." It sounds like you saying, "I need less noise." It sounds like you saying, "This relationship exhausts my truth." It sounds like you saying, "I am tired of pretending I am not affected." It sounds like you saying, "I want to feel my life again." There is power in that, not aggressive power, rooted power. The kind that grows when you stop abandoning what you know. What if the thing you've been calling your weakness is actually the doorway to your power? What if the reason you are so affected is not that you are fragile, but that you are responsive? What if your capacity to feel, to notice, to be moved, to be impacted, to ache for something more honest, is not a defect to outgrow, but a guidance system to respect? Your sensitivity is a gift. And yes, it needs care. Yes, it needs discernment. Yes, it needs boundaries, support, rhythm, and wise stewardship. But it is not the obstacle to your connection. It is one of its languages. Now, I know there is another part of this conversation that matters. There are people listening who do not only feel numb, they feel disappointed. They have prayed. They have hoped. They have waited. They have tried to trust. And life did not unfold the way they expected. Loss came. Someone left. Health changed. Money tightened. Dreams collapsed. Faith became harder. The world became less innocent. And part of what went missing was not only the feeling of connection, but trust itself. If that is you, then let me say with great tenderness, of course the feeling changed. Of course it did. Disappointment reshapes the inner landscape. Grief changes the body's weather. Betrayal alters the nervous system. Pain has consequences. You are not weak for being changed by what was hard. And still, changed is not the same as ruined. You may never again feel exactly the way you once did before your heart learned certain things. But that does not mean connection is over. It may simply mean it will return in a new form. Less naive, more grounded, less idealized, more embodied, less dependent on conditions being easy, more rooted in your capacity to stay with yourself through what is real. This matters because many people are trying to recover an old feeling that belonged to an earlier version of them. And in doing so, they miss the new connection trying to emerge. A quieter one, a wiser one, a connection that does not require innocence to exist. A connection that can breathe even in complexity. Like dawn arriving without force, this kind of connection does not conquer your life. It enters it gently. It touches what has become hard. It illuminates what has been hidden. It reveals shape slowly. It does not shame the night for being night. It simply begins to bring light. And if you are in a season of return, perhaps that is what you will start noticing. Not instant certainty, but small increases in light. More moments of contact, more truth, more softness, more capacity to pause, more tolerance for silence, more desire for what is nourishing and less appetite for what drains you. These subtle shifts are not small. They are how a life changes. Have you noticed how everything shifts the moment you stop trying to control it quite so tightly? Not because surrender makes life easy, but because the energy that was spent gripping becomes available for feeling. Control has its place. Sometimes it protects, sometimes it organizes, sometimes it gets you through. But when control becomes the primary language of the inner life, connection often retreats. Because connection thrives where curiosity lives, where receptivity lives, where honesty lives. It does not require passivity. It requires openness. And openness can begin in the tiniest of ways. A single breath where you do not brace. A single moment where you notice beauty without dismissing it. A single evening where you tell the truth about being tired. These are not small things. In the coming days, you might start to notice that your body responds to gentleness faster than it responds to pressure. You might begin to see that the inner world opens more readily when invited than when commanded. You might realize that your peace has been waiting not for perfection, but for permission. And as you notice these things, something else may become clear. The relationship you have been seeking with the sacred is inseparable from the relationship you are building with yourself. That can be a sobering realization, and a beautiful one. Because if you speak to yourself with contempt, rush, dismissal, or chronic disappointment, then even the most beautiful spiritual ideas may have nowhere warm enough to land. But if you begin, even imperfectly, to meet yourself with patience, curiosity, and care, then you create an inner atmosphere where connection can be felt again. Not because you manipulated it, but because you stopped interfering with it. The river was always there. You just stopped damming it with self-regulation. As rivers know their path without maps, there is a wisdom in you that does not need constant management. There is an intelligence in your life that is older than your fear. There is a rhythm in your being that remembers how to move toward what nourishes you when you are not living in relentless override. You do not have to figure out the whole path today. You do not have to solve the future. You do not have to become unafraid. You only have to begin noticing what helps you feel more honest, more grounded, more alive, more in contact with what is real. Maybe that means sitting outside for 5 quiet minutes before anyone asks anything of you. Maybe it means turning down the volume in the room. Maybe it means eating without distraction. Maybe it means crying in the shower and not apologizing for it. Maybe it means resting before the body forces rest upon you. Maybe it means saying no where you have been saying yes from fear. Maybe it means allowing beauty to matter again. Maybe it means touching your own cheek with the tenderness you have so freely offered to others. These are not indulgences. They are ways of telling your life, I am willing to come closer now. The return to feeling is rarely linear. That matters too. There may be days when the connection feels available and days when it seems distant again. This does not mean you imagined it. It does not mean you are back at the beginning. It means you are human. Healing moves in rhythms. Remembering moves in tides. Some days you will feel porous and alive. Other days you will feel guarded and practical again. Neither state is your permanent identity. The important thing is not perfection. The important thing is the growing refusal to interpret temporary distance as failure. That growing refusal is a form of freedom. Because once you stop panicking at the loss of feeling, you can meet it with curiosity. You can ask, what is happening in me right now? What have I been carrying? Where have I moved too far from my own pace? What have I not had space to feel? What am I needing that I have been dismissing? What truth is trying to come closer? These questions create relationship. And relationship is the soil where connection deepens, not answers alone. Relationship. So much of adult life can become transactional. Do this, get that. Work, earn, produce, receive, perform, belong. And without realizing it, many people bring that same structure into their inner life. If I meditate well enough, I will get peace. If I affirm hard enough, I will get abundance. If I heal quickly enough, I will get love. But the sacred is not a vending machine. Your soul is not a contract. Love is not earned through optimization. The deepest truths respond to presence more than transaction, to sincerity more than strategy, to willingness more than perfection. And willingness, dear heart, you have. The very fact that these words are reaching you, the very fact that this title stirred something, the very fact that you have been aching for the feeling of connection tells me that willingness is alive in you. Maybe it has been buried under fatigue. Maybe it has been dressed in skepticism. Maybe it has been bruised by disappointment, but it is still there. And that matters more than any polished spiritual identity ever could. Do you remember the last time you felt truly seen? Not for what you do, but for who you are. For the tenderness beneath the competence. For the ache beneath the composure. For the longing beneath the capability. That kind of being seen can change the whole chemistry of a moment. The shoulders drop, the breath deepens, the body stops performing. Something unclenches. This is one reason why connection so often returns in the presence of genuine kindness. Not because another person becomes your source, but because safe relational space reminds the body that it can stop defending so fiercely. And once defense softens, feeling becomes possible. This is also why your environment matters. The places you live, the people you spend time with, the kind of conversations you tolerate, the pace you keep, the sounds you bathe in, the stories you consume, all of these shape the inner climate. If the climate is constantly harsh, rushed, critical, performative, or emotionally thin, then the subtler feelings may retreat. Again, not because they are gone, because they are not easily heard in that weather. So perhaps one of the most spiritual things you can do is become more protective of your inner climate, more discerning about what gets access to your peace, more faithful to the environments that help you feel like yourself, more willing to step back from what repeatedly leaves you estranged from your own center. This is not selfishness. It is stewardship. Your life force deserves stewardship. Your attention deserves stewardship. Your tenderness deserves stewardship. Your sensitivity deserves stewardship. The gift of your sensitivity, the very thing you thought made you too much, is precisely why you are being asked to live with greater care now. Not tighter control, greater care. Care in what you let in, care in what you promise, care in what you normalize, care in how you speak to yourself after hard days, care in how you recover, care in how you listen when your body says enough. There is another form of forgetting that happens when a person becomes identified almost entirely with their roles. Parent, partner, provider, caregiver, leader, healer, employee, friend, problem solver, responsible one, strong one, peacekeeper. When these roles become the primary way you understand yourself, The inner feeling of connection can fade because the soul is not a role. The deeper self cannot be reduced to function. And if you live too long in function, you may start to feel like a collection of responsibilities instead of a living presence. That creates a very particular kind of emptiness, one where life is full and the self feels absent. If that resonates, then perhaps part of the remembering is not only about rest, but about identity. Who are you beneath what you do? Who are you when no one needs anything? Who are you when usefulness is not the measure? Who are you when the roles go quiet? These are not easy questions in a whir. LD that trains you to define yourself by output. But they are holy questions, because the more you remember that you are more than your functions, the more space there is for connection to become felt again. Maybe you have not forgotten your essence. Maybe you have only been too busy living on behalf of everyone else to spend much time with it. And I know that can stir grief. The grief of realizing how many years went by in service of survival, duty, expectation, proving, pleasing, compensating, enduring. The grief of realizing how little room there was for your own interiority. The grief of seeing the tenderness you postponed. Let that grief come if it needs to. It is not here to drown you. It is here to wash the windows a little, so you can see again. So the room inside you can have air again. Grief is not the opposite of connection. Often it is one of the ways connection reappears, because grief means something mattered. It means love existed. It means the heart is still responsive. Even numbness contains grief sometimes, the grief of too much too long. So when tears come, or heaviness comes, or the sudden need to sit down comes, do not always interpret it as regression. Sometimes it is thawing. Sometimes it is the ice beginning to loosen. Sometimes it is the body saying, now that I feel a little safer, here is some of what I've been holding. This hasn't been an easy journey for you. So many souls right now are walking through this exact transformation, feeling exactly what you're feeling, wondering the same quiet questions in the dark. And yet, here you are, still listening, still searching, still willing to let something true reach you. That takes immense courage, more than you may realize, because cynicism is easier sometimes. Numbing is easier sometimes. Going through the motions is easier sometimes. Staying open to the possibility of return after disappointment, after exhaustion, after forgetting, that is brave. I want to speak now to the subtle shame that often hides beneath the longing for connection. The shame that says, I should know better by now. I should be more evolved than this. I should not still struggle with this. I should not need so much reassurance. I should not be this affected. I should not feel so far away. Beloved, shame is a terrible guide. It can make you work harder, yes, but it cannot make you feel safer. And without safety, the deeper return remains difficult. So perhaps one of the first sacred acts is to stop using shame as your motivator, to let yourself be a living being instead of a spiritual performance, to admit that tenderness does not disappear just because you become older, wiser, or more practiced. In many ways, tenderness becomes more visible as you become more honest. There is nothing immature about needing warmth. There is nothing weak about needing gentleness. There is nothing spiritually inferior about wanting to feel held. Your heart is not a machine that should function regardless of conditions. It is alive. It responds. It remembers. It protects. It opens. It closes. It waits. It hopes. It carries. It gets tired. It needs care. These are not flaws in the design. They are part of the design. And perhaps this is the deeper healing, not learning how to transcend your humanity, but learning how to stop treating it as an inconvenience, to stop apologizing for your aliveness, to stop dismissing what is delicate because the world taught you to admire what is hard, to stop confusing emotional absence with maturity, to stop pretending that the cost of your pace is irrelevant, to stop acting as though the heart can be neglected indefinitely without consequence, because the heart keeps score in its own way, not to punish you, to tell the truth. And the truth may be this: you are longing for a relationship with life that feels less extractive, less rushed, less performative, less lonely, less tied to proving, more rooted in enoughness, more rooted in truth, more rooted in contact, more rooted in your own breath, more rooted in what makes your spirit say yes instead of what merely looks acceptable. This longing is wise. It may disrupt things. It may ask for changes. It may not fit neatly into the old structures of your life, but it is wise. There's something happening during this season that many spiritual teachers don't talk about clearly enough. The return to connection often rearranges your standards, not just your moods. Your standards, what you will tolerate, what you call love, what you call success, what you call rest, what you call normal, what you call enough. Once the feeling of real contact begins to return, even in small ways, it becomes harder to betray yourself without noticing, harder to stay in environments that flatten your soul, harder to ignore the body, harder to call depletion a virtue, harder to confuse admiration with intimacy, harder to live entirely from the outside in. This can be unsettling, but it is not wrong. It is often part of the path. When you start feeling your life again, you also start feeling what doesn't fit. That is why return can bring grief and clarity together, relief and disruption together, softness and discernment together. You may become less available for what costs too much, less willing to smile through misalignment, less interested in shrinking your truth to maintain comfort for others. That is not you becoming difficult, it is you becoming honest. And honesty, when it is paired with tenderness, becomes a kind of liberation, not loud liberation, sometimes very quiet liberation. The kind that happens when you leave the room early instead of betraying your body. The kind that happens when you no longer explain away your fatigue. The kind that happens when you stop pretending a connection that drains you is nourishing. The kind that happens when you allow the emptiness of certain habits to register instead of numbing it away. The kind that happens when you choose one true thing over many performative ones. Maybe that is one reason you forgot the feeling, because too much of life asked you to live from the outside in, and connection is mostly an inside-out phenomenon. It emerges from attunement, from truthfulness, from slowness enough to register yourself, from the willingness to listen where nothing is shouting. You cannot hear a whisper if you are living at full volume all the time, and the deeper self often speaks in whispers. So perhaps the invitation is not to chase the feeling, but to become more available to whisper-level truth. What does that mean in practice? It means noticing the first moment of overwhelm instead of the fifth. It means admitting when something leaves you hollow. It means pausing before automatic yes. It means asking not only what is expected, but what is true. It means being less impressed by busyness. It means understanding that urgency is not always importance. It means allowing your body to become part of the conversation again. It means respecting how atmosphere affects you. It means recognizing that contact with the sacred may look like turning the car off and sitting in silence for 2 minutes before entering the house. There is no hierarchy here between mystical and ordinary. The ordinary is one of the primary places the mystical becomes trustworthy. Anyone can feel briefly elevated in extraordinary moments, but can you feel even a little accompanied in ordinary moments? Can you feel a thread of aliveness while making breakfast? Can you feel your own presence while standing in line? Can you receive a breeze, a color, a scent, a beam of sunlight through the window, and let it count? This is where the remembering becomes woven into life, not reserved for rituals, woven into being alive. This is important to hear. You do not have to feel connected all the time to be deeply connected. You do not have to maintain a perfect spiritual state. You do not have to stay soft every second. You do not have to be beyond irritation, grief, fear, or fatigue. The goal is not constant elevation. The goal is a relationship with yourself that makes return possible again and again. A way of living that keeps the door less jammed shut. A way of being that does not exile you every time you are imperfect. Because that too is connection, knowing how to come back. Knowing how to come back is different from never leaving. It is wiser, humbler, kinder. It allows for life. It allows for seasons. It allows for being human in a complicated world. It says, I know I will forget sometimes. I know I will get overwhelmed sometimes. I know I will lose the feeling sometimes. And when I do, I will not make that proof of unworthiness. I will remember that forgetting happens. I will remember that numbness can be protection. I will remember that the truth remains beneath sensation. I will remember that return is possible. That touchstone can change everything. Not because it removes pain, but because it removes so much unnecessary suffering layered on top of pain. The suffering of self-accusation, the suffering of panic, the suffering of spiritual shame, the suffering of interpreting every hard season as evidence that you have failed. When those layers soften, the original ache becomes easier to meet. And what is easier to meet becomes easier to heal. There may be something in you right now beginning to breathe differently. You may not fully trust it yet. That is all right. Let it be enough that something is shifting, however subtly. Let it be enough that a little more space has appeared around the old story. Let it be enough that you can imagine, perhaps for the first time in a while, that the feeling was not destroyed, only forgotten. And what is forgotten can be remembered. In the days ahead, you may begin to notice that what once felt absent is returning in the smallest ways first, like light reaching the room before sunrise. A little more patience with yourself, a little less appetite for noise, a little more tenderness toward your own body, a little more awareness of when something is off, a little more gratitude that arrives without forcing, a little more willingness to choose rest over performance. These are not accidental. They are signs. The soil is changing. The inner climate is changing. And when the climate changes, different life becomes possible. As you move forward, something may begin to shift in ways you cannot predict yet. Not because you finally mastered a method, but because you stopped fighting your own humanity, because you started treating your fatigue as information instead of failure, because you allowed grief to be holy, because you understood that numbness was not betrayal, but protection, because you became less interested in appearing connected and more interested in living truthfully enough to feel connection as it naturally returns. That kind of shift is real, quiet, deep, lasting. And if there is one thing I hope you carry from this moment, let it be this. The feeling you forgot has been waiting with extraordinary patience beneath every role you played and every burden you carried. It did not resent your survival. It did not punish your numbness. It did not turn away when you became practical, guarded, exhausted, or lost. It stayed, like groundwater beneath a dry season, like roots beneath winter soil, like dawn behind a dark horizon, waiting for conditions, waiting for honesty, waiting for enough gentleness that you could recognize what was always yours. You are already connected. You just forgot the feeling. Say that softly inside yourself for a moment. You are already connected. You just forgot the feeling. Can you feel how different that is from saying, I have to become connected. I have to earn connection. I have to prove I am spiritual enough. One story creates pressure, the other creates relief. One story makes you chase, the other lets you soften. One story puts the sacred far away, the other brings it home. And healing so often begins in that change of story. Because what you believe about your distance shapes how you approach your return. If you believe you are cut off, you will strive and panic. If you believe you are held but unable to feel it right now, you can begin to listen. If you believe you are broken, you will likely attack yourself with methods. So, you believe you are protecting something tender, you may become kinder. If you believe the feeling is lost forever, hopelessness settles in. If you believe it is hidden beneath conditions, you become curious about the conditions. This is why the reframe matters. It changes the entire emotional posture of the path, and posture matters. Not only physical posture, though that matters too. The inner posture. Are you approaching yourself like an enemy, like a failing student, like a disappointing project? Or are you approaching yourself like someone who has lived through real things and deserves understanding? Are you meeting your numbness with contempt, or are you meeting it like a brave adaptation that no longer needs to run the whole show? Are you forcing openness, or are you cultivating safety? These distinctions are subtle, and they change everything. Notice your shoulders softening as you hear this. Notice the breath moving through your chest. Your body already recognizes this truth in ways your thinking mind may still be catching up to. There is an intelligence in you that knows the relief of being absolved from unnecessary struggle. The relief of not having to perform wholeness. The relief of realizing that nothing essential was destroyed by your hard seasons. Let that relief have a little room. Sometimes the most transformative sentence is not grand at all. Sometimes it is simply, "Nothing is wrong with me for needing a gentler way back." What if that were true? What if the timeline you have been judging is not a flaw? What if the tenderness you've been trying to manage is not an obstacle? What if the longing itself is your invitation? What if the quiet ache in your chest is not emptiness, but memory trying to return through the only opening available? What if this whole season is less about fixing and more about allowing? Less about becoming and more about remembering? Less about effort and more about fidelity to what is true? Your heart already knows this. Somewhere deep inside, you have always known that the life in you is not absent just because it is hidden. You have always known in the place beneath the noise that connection is woven into the structure of your being. You may have forgotten the feeling, yes. You may have mistrusted your own access to it. You may have confused its silence for departure. But the thread remained. The current remained. The belonging remained. And perhaps, after everything, that is what makes you strong. Not that you never forgot, but that even in forgetting, some part of you kept listening for the return. That listening is sacred, That longing is sacred. That exhaustion, when honestly met, can become sacred too. There is no part of your journey that disqualifies you from love. Not your numbness, not your confusion, not your grief, not your ambivalence, not your fatigue, not your age, not the years you spent surviving, not the ways you coped, not the seasons you went silent. Nothing. The deeper field of connection is not so fragile. It does not vanish because you struggled. If anything, your struggle may eventually make your connection more compassionate, more embodied, more real. Because now you will know the difference between feeling and truth. Now you will know what it costs to live too far from yourself. Now you will know why gentleness matters. Now you will know that return is a practice of relationship, not a prize for perfection. As you look back on this moment months from now, you may recognize it not as the day you became someone new, but as the day you stopped abandoning what had always been true. The day you stopped calling yourself broken because you could not feel what stress had muted. The day you honored the intelligence of your protection. The day you stopped making your heart earn its welcome. The day you understood that the sacred was not withholding itself from you. The day you remembered the difference between losing the feeling and losing the truth. And if that happens, even quietly, then something very beautiful will have already begun. Because a life changes when the self becomes a safer place to live. A life changes when shame loosens. A life changes when pace becomes conscious. A life changes when beauty matters again. A life changes when boundaries become an act of devotion rather than punishment. A life changes when rest is honored, when tears are allowed, when intuition is listened to, when one true no makes space for one true yes. A life changes when your internal world is no longer treated as collateral damage. This is how we return, not all at once, not through force, through relationship, through care, through repeated honesty, through conditions that support feeling, through honoring the body, through allowing grief, through noticing beauty, through reducing noise, through softening around our own humanity, through the courageous decision to stop confusing productivity with presence, through remembering over and over that we do not have to feel the current every second to still be held by it. You are not imagining this longing. It is real, and it points somewhere true. You are not weak for being tired. You have been carrying a great deal. You are not failing because the feeling has been hard to access. Your system has been wise in how it protected you. You are not behind because your return is taking time. Things that matter often take the kind of time that the world does not know how to honor. And you are not alone in any of this. We are living in a time when many hearts are quietly trying to remember how to feel safe in contact with themselves again. Many souls are learning how to come back from speed, from noise, from survival, from performance, from years of being needed more than known. This collective forgetting is real, and so is the collective remembering. You are part of that remembering, even now, especially now. So if you do nothing else after hearing these words, perhaps do this. The next time you notice the old ache, the old distance, the old fear that the connection is gone, place your hand over your heart and do not ask, "What is wrong with me?" Ask instead, "What would help me come closer without force?" Ask, "What has my heart been carrying?" Ask, "What truth have I been too rushed to hear?" Ask, "What if I am already held?" Then breathe, not to achieve anything, just to let your body know you are willing to stay. Stay for a moment longer than usual. Stay with yourself when the feeling is faint. Stay with yourself when the tears come. Stay with yourself when nothing dramatic happens. Stay with yourself when beauty brushes past. Stay with yourself when you want to escape. Stay with yourself when the old patterns return. Stay with yourself in kindness. This staying is one of the great healings, because what many people call connection is, at its heart, a profound willingness to remain in relationship with life, even when life is tender, unclear, unfinished, or hard. To remain in relationship with yourself even when you are not at your best. To remain in relationship with the sacred even when the signal is subtle. To remain. To not flee at the first sign of discomfort. To not exile yourself when you are tired. To not make distance mean disaster. To not make forgetting mean failure. And yes, there will still be days when the old habits return. Days of speed, days of noise, days of numbness, days when you cannot access the softness you know is possible. That is all right. On those days, let your practice be simple. Do not turn a hard day into an identity. Do not turn a numb hour into a life sentence. Do not turn a quiet season into a spiritual verdict. Let the day be the day. Let the season be the season. And beneath it all, keep the deeper remembering alive. The truth remains. The truth remains when your mind is busy. The truth remains when your body is tired. The truth remains when grief floods the room. The truth remains when you cannot find the words. The truth remains when you forget the feeling. The truth remains when you remember it again. The truth remains. And perhaps that is enough for now. Not a final answer, not a perfect state. Just enough truth to lean your heart against while the rest unfolds. Enough to reduce the panic. Enough to make gentleness possible. Enough to let the body breathe. Enough to invite one more honest moment. Enough to keep the door unlocked. You are already connected. You just forgot the feeling. And perhaps this is the deeper invitation of your life right now. Not to chase a version of yourself who never struggles, but to become someone who knows how to return with tenderness. Someone who recognizes the intelligence of protection without mistaking it for identity. Someone who honors sensitivity as a gift rather than a burden. Someone who builds a life where whisper-level truth can still be heard. Someone who lets beauty matter. Someone who trusts that the sacred can meet them in the laundry room, in the parked car, in the sleepless hour, in the quiet kitchen before dawn, in the middle of all the ordinary places where a human heart is trying to remember itself. And perhaps this is what opens when you accept that you were never cast out from your own source. Only tired, only overwhelmed, only carrying too much for too long, only practicing forms of strength that left little room for softness. And now softness is asking to come back, not as weakness, as wisdom, not as escape, as contact, not as passivity, as the courage to live without constant self-violence. Let that settle for a moment. Feel the seat beneath you. Feel the breath moving. Feel the simple fact of your existence here. You do not have to make this holy. It already is. You do not have to improve this moment before it belongs to the sacred. It already does. You do not have to become someone else before you are worthy of feeling close. You already are. The return may be gradual. The trust may take time. The nervous system may need patience. But nothing essential is missing from you. Nothing essential has been denied to you. The feeling may have gone quiet, but the current is still here. So, beloved, when you leave this moment and re-enter your day, carry this gently, not as another task, as a small flame, a remembrance, a softer story. When the world gets loud, remember the whisper. When the old shame speaks, remember the adaptation. When the numbness returns, remember the protection. When the beauty appears, let it count. When the truth comes, do not rush past it. When your body asks for kindness, believe it. When your heart says enough, listen. When the longing stirs, honor it. When the fear says you have lost your way, answer softly. No, I have only forgotten the feeling, and I am learning how to remember. That remembering can begin in this very breath, in this very room, in this very body, in this very unfinished life. Not later, not when everything is solved. Not when you are less tired, less tender, less human. Here, now, in the midst of what is real. The sacred has never required your life to look different before it can touch it. It is touching it now, through truth, through relief, through recognition, through the quiet yes that rises in the chest when something inside you finally feels understood. You may not have words for everything that is changing. You may not know what comes next. You may not yet trust the fullness of the path ahead. That is all right. You do not need the whole map to take one honest step toward yourself. You do not need certainty to choose gentleness. You do not need perfect faith to stop using shame. You do not need a dramatic revelation to begin honoring what helps you feel alive. One true step is enough. One softer breath is enough. One honest no. One nourishing yes. One small act of care repeated with love. That is enough to begin. And perhaps the miracle was never meant to be sudden. Perhaps it was always meant to be intimate. The kind of miracle that looks like coming home to your own life by degrees. The kind of miracle that changes how you speak to yourself. The kind of miracle that teaches you to trust subtle warmth again. The kind of miracle that lets ordinary moments become places of contact. The kind of miracle that frees you from the old belief that if you cannot feel the whole ocean, there must be no water. Sometimes one drop on the skin is enough to remember. You are not outside of love. You are not outside of life. You are not outside of the sacred. You never were. You are in a season of remembering. And remembering, like all holy things, asks for patience, tenderness, and the willingness to let small things matter. A hand on your chest, a softer evening, a boundary kept, a beautiful sky noticed, a truth admitted, a breath received, a tear welcomed, a body honored, a life no longer rushed past. These are not tiny things. They are the architecture of return. So let this be your blessing as you go. May you stop measuring your worth by how intensely you can feel and begin trusting the quiet continuity beneath sensation. May you honor the wisdom of every part of you that protected your heart when life was too much. May you become a kinder place for your own spirit to land. May you learn the pace at which your tenderness can breathe. May you notice the first signs of return without demanding proof. May you let beauty find you again. May you remember that sensitivity is not a punishment, but a language. May you understand that your longing is not lack, but orientation. May you know, even on the hardest days, that forgetting the feeling is not the same as losing the truth. And when the feeling returns, and it may in the smallest ways first, may you greet it not with panic, not with disbelief, but with the quiet recognition of someone meeting an old friend at the door. Oh, there you are. I didn't realize how much I missed you, and perhaps the friend will smile and say, I never left. I was under the noise, under the effort, under the roles, under the hurry, under the fear, waiting for you to stop running past yourself long enough to notice. You do not need to rush now. You do not need to prove now. You do not need to become anything other than honest now. That honesty is enough. That breath is enough. That willingness is enough. That small softening in your chest is enough. That desire to come closer is enough. That life in you, the one that keeps reaching for what is real, is enough. And perhaps this is the deeper healing after all, not learning how to become connected again, but finally trusting that you always were.